I want to like position myself where you can't see all my clothes. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing and discussing Cinder by Marissa Meyer. I don't know why it's taking me so long to read this book, because I've seen it at the bookstore 100 times. I'm so glad I finally read it. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. It is a sci-fi fairy tale retelling of Cinderella. It takes place in the future, in the very distant future, 127 years after World War IV. And it is about this girl named Cinder. She is a mechanic. She's also a cyborg. In their society, about a dozen years or so ago, this mysterious plague started to wipe out a lot of the citizens in the countryside, and it's slowly creeping its way into the cities. And it is called... what is it called? I don't even know if it has a name. I'm totally like blanking. Oh, Letumosis. And very much like Cinderella, she has the evil stepmom and the two stepsisters. I didn't feel like her stepmom was as terrible as I was expecting initially. Then some things happened and her stepmom turned into the crazy stepmom from the story. But initially I didn't think she was that bad. And that is just about all I want to say about the story. I know that's really vague, but I went into it without knowing really anything. I mean, I briefly glanced over the back and had heard rave reviews about it from everybody else. But other than that, I didn't really go into it knowing a lot. And I feel like that was for the best. So that's really all I'm going to say about what happens. I do want to mention, very much liked the way that the story was told. It is a different world, it's fantasy, and it wasn't like dumped on me all in one chapter. It was very slow building. She introduced new facets of the world throughout the whole story, so I didn't feel like I was overwhelmed with just trying to keep up with what was going on in the world. I definitely felt like she incorporated different parts of their society throughout the story, so it was easy to keep track of how this world is different from ours. The characters were fantastic. I really liked Cinder. I thought that she was a really good, different version of Cinderella. She was more self-sufficient than the original Cinderella, I felt like, and more driven and more independent. And I really liked how we got to delve more into the prince. The original Cinderella doesn't really talk much about him. He's just the prince. And I really did like Peony and Aiko as well. And even though Queen Lavanna is terrifying and a queen I would never want to be a subject of, she was fascinating. You could tell like that she had depth. She wasn't just a villain to be a villain. And I really liked her. Now, aside from that, I don't want to say too much more because I don't want to give anything away, because I didn't know anything about the story, and I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. So for those of you who have not read this, which is probably like none of you, but if you haven't read it, go read it, come back and discuss with me when you've read it, because I'm about to spoil things. Are you ready? Are you ready? We're going to talk about the biggest thing first. You ready? I totally called that ending. Totally called it. I totally called the ending. And I'm not mad about that. I get really excited when I'm right about that kind of stuff. Rewinding the beginning. I was initially really kind of confused about the difference between cyborgs and androids. Cinder doesn't just have a metal arm, metal leg, and metal like vertebrae and silicone organs, but she has that hardwire control panel in her brain, and I was not expecting that. Like, I just thought she would have metal, like I was just expecting the metal limbs, and the whole like inner workings, how her body was like programmed like a machine to restabilize itself after a certain point, was really threw me off for a while, and I had a hard time getting on board with that whole thing, but by the end it was just part of her character. But initially I was kind of confused differentiating that from an android. Once I figured out the difference, the androids, I just kept picturing little Eves from WALL-E. just little like white floating eaves everywhere. That was what Aiko and Nancy and all of them looked like, right? Right? Isn't that what an android should look like? I really liked Aiko. I thought she was super like witty and sassy, and she was so blunt, and I love that because she's a machine and she doesn't process emotions and she doesn't understand emotions, so she just says whatever she wants. Because Cinder's kind of a no-nonsense girl, and so she needs a no-nonsense machine best friend. I really liked all of the fairy tale, like I kept looking for the references to Cinderella. Like I was waiting to meet the stepmom and I was waiting to meet the stepsisters, like right off the bat. I was like, okay, who are they? The stepmom wasn't as terrible as I expected her to be until Peony died. Once Peony died, she kind of turned into an awful human being. In this society, cyborgs are not considered human because they're not entirely human, which isn't fair. You wouldn't consider somebody with an artificial limb to not be human, and so that's basically what cyborgs were. Once Peony passed, the evil stepmother was in full force. And I didn't like Pearl. She was just a stuck-up little brat. How did she have Pearl, who was so rude and inconsiderate, and then Peony, who was just gentle and kind, and why couldn't Pearl have been the one to catch the disease? When Peony is dying of the plague, like if Cinder was just a minute or two earlier, she would have totally saved her sister and Peony wouldn't have died, and that was sad. I felt so bad because Cinder wanted to feel and she wanted to like express her overwhelming like sadness about her sister dying, but she couldn't because she is part machine. She can't compute those kinds of feelings. And when the stepmom was like, how dare you not even shed a tear for your sister? You're not even human. Like, you can't even show emotion about her dying. And she's like, I can't. Like, she can't blush. She doesn't have tear ducts. And that made me really sad because she reacted to it in a different way than what a human would. But you could tell that she was still upset over it. And then I liked the reference with the whole, the car being orange and that she's fixing, and it's a pump, you know, it's the pumpkin. I liked that. That was really clever. I was waiting for the fairy godmother. I thought at first it was going to be when the screen port turned on the night before the ball, when she put the decom chip in there and there's no signal. Eventually she got one. I thought that was going to be the fairy godmother until she was described as being a girl with really long blonde braided hair, and I was like, that's Cress, because I've seen all the covers. Oh, we're meeting Cress. That's obviously not the fairy godmother. She has her whole book, you know, her whole own book. So by the end of the story, when she's escaping, I concluded that the doctor was her fairy godmother. And I thought that was so cool that he's also, because we find out that not only is she a cyborg, but she's lunar, like she's from the moon. And I thought that was cool that he was too, and he didn't, like, why did he not tell her right away? And I understand, but I was kind of frustrated. As soon as they started referencing, like, this missing princess that needed to be found, and how she was brought to Earth, and how she's been hiding all these years, and how nobody can find her, that's Cinder. Cinder is totally Princess Celine. And then he started telling her that she was lunar, and she found out that she's actually from the moon colony. I was like, okay, now she's definitely Princess Celine. There is no way she's not. It's just crazy that this guy that has been looking for her for so long, trying to, you know, these people have been trying to find a way to revolt against Queen Lavanna and bring her crazy rule to an end, and she's just been hanging out. She was adopted by her stepmom and her stepdad. She was brought over from Europe after a fatal car crash that killed her parents and left her badly injured. That was the first sign. I was like, I don't know about that. Let's talk about Queen Lavanna. That woman is crazy. That woman is terrifying. The fact that she can control mass quantities of people, and not even just lunar. She has control over lunars and humans. That was crazy. Why can she do that? Like, I want to know more about this whole bioelectric, whatever it was called, magic. I want to learn more about it. How do they control all these people? Where did this come from? Like, was it developed? Because I felt it was really weird that she could control lunars and humans. But she is scary. She kills her own sister to get the throne, mutilates her niece or stepdaughter, whoever Princess Winter is, mutilates her. Winter. I got really excited when we had the reference to Winter, Princess Winter. I'm like, oh, that's who the 4th book's about. That's not out yet. But obviously, she's a main, she's a big deal. Something about her is important. She mutilates her because she's too pretty. I wonder if we met Scarlet at some point. I don't think so. I don't remember thinking. I was pretty good at picking out the connections. I don't think we did. Anyway, back to Queen Lavanna. Woman is crazy. Crazy. Those like mutant, I just kept picturing like mutant gorillas. What are those? What is she doing with them? It was very like Hunger Games-ish in my opinion. I'm so fascinated by like the whole like lunar people and how they get this magic and how come they're not like, if they possess magic themselves, why can't they repel Lavanna's magic? Like, what is this? The doctor had mentioned this to Cinder, that her and Lavanna have this like special bloodline of magic from being royalty. Well, what is that? I want to know more. I'm curious. Oh, and then when she's at the ball, when she finally gets to the ball and Queen Lavanna sees her and she's able to resist her bioelectric whatever magic, and the doctor tells her, oh, she knew right away as soon as she saw you who you were. You're in mortal danger. Ooh. Or when she was downloading that like interface of Queen Lavanna underneath her magic veil and what she really looked like, and just, oh, you're not as beautiful as everyone thinks you are. What does she look like? Is she part cyborg too? That was my initial thought, was that she was a cyborg as well, and that's why she masked herself so heavily. She's so disgusted by androids, and the idea of like mixing human with machine really disgusts Lunars, so that's why Cinder's so unique. But what if she's a cyborg too? That was my first initial thought, was, oh, she's a cyborg. That's why she hides herself. But I don't understand why this like 30-year-old woman wants to marry a 19-year-old kid. Like, he's a kid. Like, I don't understand why she wants to be a part of the Commonwealth, like that country so badly. Why not any of the other countries? Like, why doesn't she want to take over the other ones? Is the Commonwealth the most successful after this 4th World War? I have so many questions. I feel like this book just gave me just like so many questions, and I want the next book now. I want to go buy Scarlet and read and continue to read until I have Winter. Oh, and then when she isn't able to save her sister, it was just so sad. And then she gives the cure to the baker's son, and he's cured of the disease. I kept thinking in my mind, this isn't gonna go well. Like, you're only gonna cure him to give him some other kind of issues. Like, that was my thought, was maybe it is a trick and you're going to cause something more wrong to happen. Maybe the Queen Lavanna is being truthful and really giving them an antidote. Although I don't feel like she's that nice. I don't feel like she has any redeeming qualities. Like I said, she murdered her sister and mutilated her stepdaughter because she was too pretty. And burned her, I don't remember, I wish I could remember, how was Princess Celine burned? I know it was a nursery fire. Did she set it? I loved learning about the prince and his dad. And how did his dad get the plague? Anybody else wonder that? If this is a disease that's typically found in the countryside and it's creeping its way into the city, but it's mainly in the city outskirts, how did the emperor get the plague? Because you would think he'd be really heavily guarded and wouldn't be allowed to come in contact. If it's transmitted by Lunars who are carrying the disease, where did he get it from? Do you see all my questions? This isn't like a review discussion video. This is just like a I have so many questions video. But if you had any of the same questions, or if you had any other favorite parts of this book, or haven't read Scarlet and want to theorize with me, because if you've read Scarlet and Cress, you know you probably have some of these questions answered, and I don't want to be spoiled. Tell me your favorite parts below. I really liked that Aiko was pretty much just a version of Eve from Wall-E. Eve. If you had any of the same speculations that I have, let me know down below, and until next time, I will talk to you guys soon. Bye. I didn't pre-write my review, so my mind is just a jumble today. Did I say she was a mechanic? She's a mechanic. Did I say that? I'm so hungry. Anybody else that had, I don't know if this is true for the hardcover too, but my paperback is like covered in fingerprints. I can't get them to go away. Like if they just smudge. Like, I'm so hungry. Can you see them? Can you see them? Words are so hard sometimes. It's driving me nuts. It's stupid, but it's driving me nuts.